Hi guys, Miss Shouter here. We are back with more of The Terrible Two by Jory, John, and Mac Barnett, illustrated by Kevin Cornell. We were on chapter 30. Chapter 30. April 1st was a Monday, 52 days away. Most afternoons, Miles and Niles went to the library or did research in the prank lab. At lunch, they sat together and planned, careful not to seem like they were planning anything. Looks like you and Niles are getting to be pretty good friends, Holly remarked one day, one eyebrow upraised. Yep, Miles said, because there was no better cover story than the truth. Holly raised her other eyebrow. When the snow melted, they put on puffy jackets and took tools into the forest by the lake. Together they picked the perfect tree, an old sycamore with a thick mottled trunk and sturdy white branches spreading out and ending in barren spindles. Miles's mom was so thrilled to hear he was building a treehouse with a friend that she chipped in for materials. Niles's parents, who Miles had seen around the house only a few times, financed the rest. Niles had pitched the clubhouse as an engineering project. They hammered and sawed. It wasn't long before they'd built a platform and then a roof. Even though it was cold, they brought books to the tree and read in the gray light of winter. It got warm enough to camp out. They brought Niles' red tent to the tree and set it up on the platform. Miles was in charge of setting it up and taking it down. Niles was in charge of marshmallows, and in March, their tree grew great green leaves and the clubhouse got walls and a window. So we see February 17th, February 24th, March 1st, and then March 31st. It's perfect, Niles said when the treehouse was done. Miles painted Secret HQ, that means headquarters, above the doorway, and they carved initials next to the window. They made their final April Fool's preparations 19 feet above the ground, and then there was nothing left to do but prank. Chapter 31. Officially, the prank began on March 23rd, when Miles Murphy deposited a letter in the mailbox on his corner, but the real action didn't get underway till midnight on April 1st. Miles watched the red numbers on his alarm clock change from 11:59 to 12 o'clock. The last verse of "These boots are made for walking" started playing softly, but Miles was already awake. He hadn't gone to sleep. About 2 hours ago, he'd given up on the book that he was too distracted to read, and he'd been staring at the radio since then, going over the plan, waiting for the tiny click his alarm clock made before the music came on. Miles grabbed his backpack. He had hoped he'd be too tired to be anxious, or too wired to be anxious, but he was anxious, and tired, and wired. "Happy April Fool's Day," he said. "Time to go." Miles had sort of wanted to make a rope with his bed sheets, but his mom was a deep sleeper. The smartest thing was to sneak downstairs and out his front door. Stars spilled overhead, and the night's cold air made his lungs ache. The only sound was the faint buzz of a streetlight on the fritz. Miles Murphy realized he'd never been out this late on his own before. It was exhilarating. He pulled up the hood of his sweatshirt and took off down the street. When Miles saw headlights, he froze. Bent over, he pretended to tie his shoe. Act natural. He was ready for the car to slow down, ask him what he was doing, a kid out at night, and on April Fool's Day too. But the car drove right by. After that, Miles didn't stop for anything. On Spring Street, a raccoon crawled out of a storm drain and stared at him like he knew exactly what Miles was up to and like he was in on it. They were two of a kind, Miles and this raccoon, masked bandits, denizens of the night. Miles saluted the raccoon as he ran past. The raccoon went back down the drain. Soon there were no more streetlights, just darkness. But Miles knew where he was going. Paved road gave way to dirt road, gave way to no road. Miles hopped a fence. The grass grew tall here, and the dew soaked his jeans to mid-calf. When he made it to the meadow, where the trees grew thick, it was safe to use the flashlight just for a second. He caught his breath, got his bearings, flicked the switch to off. He had to move slower now, stepping carefully over roots and easing down gullies. Almost there. At the rendezvous point, he pressed a button on his watch and the face lit up. 11 minutes early. He leaned against a maple tree and waited. A steady creaking came at 1 o'clock. It grew louder and stopped nearby. Miles flashed his light 3 times. 3 blinks answered. Niles pulled up on a bike, pulling Miles's wagon behind him. The wagon held a small bale of hay. "This thing feels heavier tonight," Niles said. He hopped off his bike. He was wearing black jeans, a black sweatshirt, and a tall black Stetson. What's with the hat? Miles asked. It felt appropriate. Part of Miles wanted to make fun of the hat. The other part wanted a hat. Let's do this, said Miles. And that is the end of chapter 31. We will see what happens with chapter 32. Make your predictions. What do you think? I hope you enjoy.